So today I am going to just showcase a couple of little things for you to do with making the most of colour at the start of a painting. That's basically the drawing. I'm going to mix my colour here, okay? Don't do this on your painting. It's only to showcase what's going on. I'm going to start with a large brush. I have got my paint set out. Obviously, I specialise in acrylics, so that's the thing I'm mostly going to demonstrate. Okay, so what I'm going to showcase today is, it's one of the things I started doing to really help me out, was don't use any white at the beginning of a painting. Okay, so really what you want to do is exploit colour. So almost pure colour. If it's too pure, you could run it down with another colour, maybe a bit of yellow ochre, a bit of burnt sienna. If you haven't got these colours, basically the ethos behind it is to say to yourself, don't use any white if you don't need to. So I'm going to start by just blocking in some relatively strong yellow. Especially here where the strongest sunlight is. And obviously that's going to be my brightest point, and everything around it is just going to pale off a little bit more. So after that, I'm just going to maybe add a bit more yellow ochre, a bit more orange, a bit more red. If you haven't got these colours, like I say, it's really, you could do with a limited palette by just not mixing white at the beginning. So I'll add a bit of red and yellow, just starting this pool of colour off, and we can start to just add some additional colours around it. So just didn't want it as strong as that, so it's just going to start to pale off like so, and over here. So what you get with this is you get this striking saturated colour straight away, and it just opens up your perception to look at colour. Obviously this image kind of helps because it's quite a saturated scene. Again, a bit more red. So the reds are quite bright. Like I said, I've just added a little bit of burnt sienna with it just to run it down a little bit. Over there. So I want to just add a few other colours around the side, because the colour's going to die off a little bit. So I'm going to just add some green to this colour, and what it does is it creates a brown. So we just want to just add some, essentially I'm using like a yellow ochre to soften the colour out. So all I'm doing is, like I say, the priority for me at this stage, don't include any white whatsoever, because what will happen is the moment you add white to a colour, you'll start to drain the colour of all its energy. So we really want to get that colour going a little bit longer. Here. And so where the trees are, I just want to make some marks. And the other thing is I'm just doing blocks, I'm not blending. Just applying these blocks like so. Is that clear so far? Good. Okay, so I want to get more green this time, maybe with a bit of blue. I've got a couple of blues here. This is a cobalt blue. So I'm just going to start another pool of colour over here. There's quite a few new paints, by the way, if you want to use any of those for free. So, and we just want to darken around the sides. If it goes a bit too green, I can just add more of that colour into the mix. I've added a bit more blue this time, so it goes a little bit darker. And again, as I introduce colour, I just want to make sure I'm using the same brush, so I can just introduce the new colour into some of the old colour. So it's going to create a kind of air of consistency to the painting. And also, if you use the same brush for a certain amount of time, colour will become embedded in the brush. So if I add more pressure on, maybe more of the yellow ochre will come through, or more of the red that's embedded in it. So a bit more dark on this side. Just get a bit more blue. Just make it go a little bit darker. What might happen is you get a jarring difference in some places. If it's too strong, again, maybe I'll pick up some of my initial colour and just almost soften it into some of this colour that's over there. And we've got some relatively dark branches. I don't want to illustrate all of them. Just want to make a few marks. Around here. There's an awful lot of other stuff around it, so we're going to get to that in a second. A bit more blue into this mix. Now the colour is going to start dying because it's mixing in or creating a neutral, because it's going to mix in a lot more with this colour, so I might want to get a new brush, a bit more blue so the colour's slightly purer, pick up a little bit of that, just so the blue just sings a little bit more. So no white at this stage to allow colour to function on a slightly higher level. What I might want to also do is just skim some colour like that so it kind of granulates a little bit, because the fullness of the colour isn't coming through there too much. So I can just granulate it by not pressing as hard on the brush. Similar thing happens over there, so we can do a similar kind of thing on this side. So just relatively soft touch to just drag the paint so it kind of goes granular. And then we can maybe go back to something a little bit fuller on this side. There's a little bit of colour, just want to exploit on this side. Again, just granulating it. So the good thing about starting off like this, like I say, the colour's lovely and rich and potent. So anything after this stage goes downhill. Because what you're doing is you're going to soften everything, and everything's going to contrast with more lights and darks. Okay, so there's a couple of things I can do. I can introduce the white gradually. So just to give you an example, if I go back to the first brush and I get a tiny bit of white, a tiny bit of yellow. So this is my new pool of colour. There's still some colour in the brush. What I can do is start to patchwork some softer lights, maybe even some reds. So very strong, and then it starts to pale off a little bit, but I've still got the rich saturated colour. And then if I just clean this brush off, and if I get lots of white now, tiny bit of lemon yellow. I like using lemon yellow because it's a fizzy yellow, and even a little bit gives it quite a bit of push. So I'm going to go fairly strong into this. And we can start cutting our way through what we started with. It's probably better dealing with the bigger shapes first. Something like that. And we're going to start painting around some of these tree trunks and branches. What I want to do is, as it goes up, I'm going to cool this brush down so the colours within it are lighter. I might want to use a smaller brush. A little bit more. Just going to just give this a little bit more weight. And a little bit of light over here. So currently there's yellow in this brush. So it's a heated light source. And in a second I'm just going to soften it off a little bit more white. One of the other things I'll say about starting off a painting, you actually want to kind of get quite a bit done quite quickly, because it really kind of gets the painting going, and you don't really want to dwell on it too long, because eventually it will take time putting these little bits in. But to start off with, you actually want it to be quite full. So if I get this brush, add a bit of blue in it, I'll get a cooler light tint. I can put some light yellow in it, a bit more white. And we can start cooling off the sky a little bit more. So I like doing this negative shade painting as well, where you're painting the background to bring the foreground out. Like there. So it's kind of like you're leaving some of this granulation. A bit more control maybe around here and here. So it starts to kind of build up the colour. What you can then do is then use a mixture of a bit of everything. So a bit of light, a bit of yellow, and you can start to seal up some of these areas, just so the painting becomes a little bit fuller. So this nice, strong yellow bits of light just catching down here. Nearly done. And the other thing I want to do is just get my dark tone again. Just start to add these additional sharper branches, just to make the detail and definition pop a little bit more. So a few more little lines down here, and we'll just elaborate on the tree trunk, and it's fairly strong. A few little bits of dark in here. There's the odd little bit of branch. There. And just some lines in here, not as dark this time. Bit more red, bit more orange. So this is one of the reasons why you might start off large with the strokes, but then you end with hopefully some smaller, slightly more delicate marks. So it really crystallizes what you should be looking at. And just around there. Again, just filling up some of the base color. So I could go to town on this. I could start doing lots of little things. Just put little bits of light. But like I say, the idea really is to not utilise the light till you really need it towards the end, and really make the painting pop with the colour initially to make, like I say, that colour work for you. Okay? Carry on.